Between the year 2000 and 2001, two low-budget horror films were released in Hong Kong entitled Human Pork Chop and There's a Secret in My Soup. These two films, as two among a long line of movies in the exploitative horror genre in Hong Kong, were based on the truly gruesome murder case known as the Hello Kitty murder that happened merely about a year prior. The details of the torture, murder, and subsequent dismemberment of the victim, Fan Man Yee, were reenacted with some painful accuracy in There's a Secret in My Soup, which many critics had commented as a much closer adaptation than Human Pork Chop by comparison. Ranked as number 4 in the top 10 all-time criminal cases in Hong Kong, the Hello Kitty murder is no doubt one of the most brutal homicide cases in Hong Kong history. It was also an interesting case from a legal standpoint. Due to the treatment of the victim's body, it was a difficult case for the prosecution to secure a murder conviction at the trial. Before going into more detail about the aftermath, let's dive into the details about what took place. About what exactly happened to the 23-year-old Fan Man Yee during the month of April in the year 1999. As a nightclub hostess, Fan Man Yee was living from paycheck to paycheck, as many in her profession often do. But when her grandmother fell ill in 1997, Yee stole several thousand Hong Kong dollars in cash and several items from her then boyfriend, Chairman Locke, to help pay for the medical expenses. After discovering the theft by Yee, Locke, together with two of his friends, Leung Shing Cho and Leung Wai Lun, forced Yee to pay back what she stole from Locke, with an exorbitant amount of interest tacked on. With no other means to repay the debt, Yee was forced to work as a prostitute, even through her pregnancy. As the trio continued to raise the interest rate, Yee fell further and further behind on her repayment of the debt. And finally, on March 17th in 1999, Shing Cho and Wai Lun, under the direction of Locke, kidnapped Yee from a residential unit located in Kwai Chung and took her to flat 3B of an old residential building located at 31st Granville Road in Tsim Sha Tsui. Yee was questioned on why she had failed to repay what she owed and had been refusing to return calls from the group. Yee was reportedly kicked over 50 times, but unbeknownst to her, that would pale in comparison with the torture she was about to face continuously for the following month. As the trio finished boarding up the windows, the nightmare began for Yee. She was repeatedly beaten with metal pipes, endured endless kicking, being stomped, forced to drink boiling oil, had melted plastic poured on her skin, the bottom of her feet burned with a cigarette lighter, among many other unspeakable treatments. According to statements given by the 15-year-old girlfriend of Leung Wai Lun, while she was staying with the trio at the Granville flat, she witnessed many of the tortures that were enacted on the victim, and she was even told at one occasion to defecate in a shoebox so the trio can make Yee consume the fecal matter. It was established that during the month-long torture of Yee, Methamphetamine was shared, and it was unknown if Yee was under the influence of the drug during her torture, which may have explained some of the strange actions that the trio said Yee had done, such as repeatedly picking and pulling on scabs that formed on the wounds she received from the repeated torture. Since the police were only able to recover a small portion of Yee's body, they were only able to estimate that she died sometime during mid-April, after suffering for about a month's worth of continuous torture. After noticing Yee's death, the trio decided to dispose of her body by dismembering her, first bleeding her dry in the bathtub in the flat, then sawing her off into parts, collecting her intestines in plastic bags after boiling them with hot water, finally disposing of whatever they could at the trash collection station. However, during the confusion, and possibly due to drug impairment, some of the internal organs were left in the flat, and some were dumped into the awning just outside their windows. Chairman Locke then took Yee's head and cooked it in a gasoline stove, and later sewed a partially cooked skull into a mermaid Hello Kitty doll. There were unconfirmed reports that the trio was cooking their food as Yee's skull was still being broiled in the same cooking pot. At the same time, neighbors had reportedly called the police about a strong, unpleasant odor coming from the flat where the trio stayed in, but the report was dismissed by the police at the time as a simple sanitary issue with the odors coming from trash buildup near the building's location. On May 24, 1999, a social worker working at a girls' reformatory filed a report with the Hong Kong police about a possible homicide that she was told about by a 13-year-old girl who was staying there. The girl was having repeated nightmares about a woman who kept asking the girl to give her back her missing head. Upon further questioning, the girl revealed that she had, for a month, personally witnessed the torture and ultimately the dismemberment of a woman at a flat located on Granville Road. On May 26, 1999, a team of police officers entered the flat on Granville Road, equipped with basic biohazard gear, anticipating a crime scene. What greeted them as they entered the flat was overwhelming smell of rot. It was so strong that it was said to make some of the officers' eyes water. Laying against the wall in the hallway as they entered was the doll in question. To confirm the young girl's claim, the lead officer lightly poked the doll with a rod and could feel the solid object inside the mermaid doll. The medical examiner opened the Hello Kitty doll and found a female skull inside with a large number of maggots among the cotton stuffing. Along with the doll, the police also took away a small fridge, a hammer, and pots which they believe may have been the ones used in the cooking of the skull, with maggots and some undetermined leftover bits still inside. With the names provided by the young girl, police quickly issued warrants and were able to capture Chairman Locke the following day. The second suspect, Leung Shing Cho, turned himself in on May 28th. The last suspect, Leung Wai Lun, was able to escape capture and made his way into mainland China, but was also captured by custom officials in February the following year as he attempted to return to Hong Kong. On October 9, 2000, the trial began for Chairman Locke, Leung Shing Cho, and Leung Wai Lun. All three pleaded not guilty to the charge of first-degree murder of Fan Man Yee the previous year. This case presented an unusual challenge for the prosecution because law enforcement was unable to recover the majority of the body parts of the victim. The only portion they were able to recover was the skull, with all the DNA evidence already destroyed after being broiled on the stove for a long period. Some of the internal organs were also recovered from a plastic bag that was dropped onto the awning outside the flat. Without the major portion of the body, the medical examiner was unable to prove with certainty what the cause of death was. It made for a difficult case since there was no medical evidence that can prove the defendants caused the victim's death. As a long array of evidence was presented, the unmistakable smell of rotten flesh filled the gallery of the courthouse, seemingly reminding all who were present what kind of horror the victim endured. On December 6, 2000, the jury found the three defendants not guilty of first-degree murder by the ratio of 6-1, but found them guilty of manslaughter. Judge Peter Nguyen imposed the maximum sentence allowed, which was life in prison, but allowed for the possibility of parole after serving 20 years. He stated the need for maximum sentence was present after taking into account the gruesome nature of the crime and the lack of remorse by the defendants during the trial demonstrated that they had no intention to repent for their crime. After the verdict, all three repealed the conviction, but only Leung Shin-cho was granted, and in the end had his life sentence reduced to 18 years in prison. This was due to a technicality where the jury was not directed to the fact that Cho was reportedly not present the day the victim died, which should exclude him from being tried as an accomplice in the case, which essentially forced him to share the sentence handed down to them as a group. Leung Shin-cho completed his sentence and was released in April of 2014. Even though I've seen plenty of videos covering this case out there, I still decided to work on this case is because, besides the brutal nature of the torture and dismemberment, there were a lot of urban legends and ghost stories related to this case as well. After the case concluded, the owner naturally had a tough time keeping tenants in the building. There were reports of strange noises in the hallway at night, the sound of a woman crying, etc. Everybody moved out except for one family who lived on the 4th floor at the time. After dropping the rental price down, a hair salon took up the first 2 floors of the building and renovated it into a modern setup, hoping to draw in a younger crowd who may be less superstitious. During an interview with a local newspaper, however, employees of the salon told the reporter that they had seen Hello Kitty dolls appearing randomly late at night in their salon near closing time, and had seen lights going out from time to time. In 2012, the building was finally demolished and was rebuilt as a hotel. Different from most homicide cases, the skull of the victim was kept by the city morgue as a piece of key evidence in the case, as repeals were processed after the initial conviction. The skull was not returned to the victim's family until March of 2004. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoyed the case. If you like it, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. We also have an Instagram account also. The link is on the top of the page. If you have any comments or suggestions on how to improve the video or have cases you want to suggest, please feel free to leave a comment below. Any kind of information from external sources, I also leave a link in the description down there also. Alright, thank you very much. We'll see you on the next one.